Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome BlackBerry Executive Chairman and CEO, John Chen.
Thank you, everybody, and good afternoon. As I pointed out, I'm John Chen, the Executive Chair and the CEO of BlackBerry. And you probably think that BlackBerry and Detroit Auto Show, what is the connection to the two? And so I'm here to try to explain to that, with not only my presentation, but my colleagues' presentation, as well as other people that's come and help us to celebrate this event. Now, I don't have to explain to anyone judging from the crowd that you probably know what BlackBerry does. And I think if I venture to guess, most of you have been at one time or the other customers of BlackBerry, correct? I see a lot of nodding, okay? That's so. Now, so as I said, we're going to talk about the relationship between us and the auto show a little bit later. But before I start, I have a very distinguished guest that I would like to introduce. And this gentleman drove 2 to 3 hours in the snow from up north in Canada, all the way come out here to support our events. And this is, of course, I'm referring to Minister Bain. And I'm very pleased for Minister Bain that came, and I said he drove 3 hours to come down here. And in the future, if BlackBerry is ever being successful with a lot of our partners in the show, that he doesn't have to drive himself, the car will take him here, the autonomous driven car. He's obviously a very great supporter of BlackBerry, and he led the development of the Government of Canada Innovation Agenda, which aimed to make the country a worldwide center for innovation. And he's going to speak a little bit about that, I'm sure. And with that, please join me and welcome him on stage to tell you more about it. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very, very much, John, for that kind introduction. As he was saying, yes, the weather is a bit cold. I still have my earmuffs on, so I'm really well prepared for this frigid weather. But good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to all of you today. And again, thank you very much, John, for your leadership. And I'll be returning the favor momentarily by saying a few good words about you as well. It really is a pleasure for me to be here and to be part of the annual get-together. As you know, this is something that is an exciting part of my role as the Minister for Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. Each year, I'm here at the Auto Show, and it's a great place to see new technologies and to see new ideas emerge. So, as mentioned, it really is an opportunity to highlight a little bit what we're talking about today. And we're talking about self-driving technology, eco-friendly vehicles, cutting-edge security. And for us to succeed, that is in the automotive sector and making the cars of the future, we have to start today. We have to recognize the opportunities that are before us today. But we can't do it alone. We know that the Canada-US relationship is an integral part of both of our successes. We have shared technology, shared knowledge, and shared innovation. Of course, one of the key players in our self-driving vehicle surge is our host today, the BlackBerry QNX. The company has quickly become a world leader in security-embedded software. Its newest operating system is being used in more than 60 million vehicles, from luxury cars to minivans, and we saw that in the presentation just a few moments ago. From speaking with John and many other industry leaders, I know that BlackBerry QNX values the business environment that we have created in Canada. Companies are drawn to our talent pool, our ideas, and our immense capacity to innovate. In Canada, ladies and gentlemen, we are betting on innovation. And we're making sure every person has the skills to work in the economy of today and tomorrow. So if you look at the success of the product that's going to be launched today, if you look at the turnaround success of BlackBerry, it is fundamentally rooted in the people in the company. And we recognize that as a federal government. And our government is playing an active partnership role with the automotive sector. We're investing in people, technology, and in businesses. In fact, just to highlight that point, and I think John would like this for the long-term success of the company, we are teaching close to 1 million kids to learn how to code. This is about digital literacy. This is about understanding how to solve problems. So if you know anyone looking to expand their business into Canada, let them know that in a matter of years, we will have an army of talented Canadians with the STEM and digital skills needed for future technologies, particularly in the automotive sector. So I gotta be brief. That was the promise I had made to John. So I'm gonna wrap up and introduce the man of the hour. Under his leadership, BlackBerry has been reestablished not only as a Canadian icon, but a global one. The first time BlackBerry changed the world was with its smartphone, and I must confess I still have a BlackBerry smartphone. Today, it is shaping the Internet of Things with its market-leading software and innovations. When this individual took the helm of BlackBerry, the company was losing $1 billion a quarter. Imagine the losses it was amassing. But today, the company is delivering record-breaking growth in its software business. To tell you more about the company's latest product, let me introduce its CEO, John Chen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bain. So, as I said earlier, I'm here to explain what we do in auto and why we're in the auto show. We're very excited. My first time here, not the first time in Detroit, but the first time at the show. So let me just take a very brief moment to speak a little bit about our strategy and hoping that with that, it leads to your understanding of why we're here. The number one thing is that I call it the new BlackBerry. Minister Bain spoke about the fact, I came to the company 4 years ago. We obviously pioneered the handset business for the industry. And we found that very difficult for us for a whole host of reasons. And that's a subject matter that anybody want to discuss. But when I came in, I saw a tremendous amount of technology and know-how. And I start thinking about, with the team, how do we evolve the business so that we get ahead of the industry? And we quickly came out with using the BlackBerry know-how in handset, which are mobility first, communications, security. And with those three kind of the tripod and all the technology, the patent, we have 40,000 patents and around the world. And so with that, we start creating what's the next thing. Now, it's not surprising to all of you that IoT happened to be the next thing, right? But then everybody is in IoT. You know, you could talk to a telephone company, they have an IoT strategy. You could talk to a technology company. You can even talk to banks. The banks have an IoT strategy. So what is the IoT strategy that we have? So we decided to tackle it again from the security side, again from the communication, and we very much focus on the enterprise use. So this little shield on the right-hand side is to protect our customer from cybersecurity attack. And we decided that that will be our calling card. That will be where the strategy is going to be based on. And fortunately, I'm very pleased with the company progress and the team's effort. In the last 4 years, we have built quite a portfolio. We've built quite a bit of big business on in the software side of this equation. So on the software and services, we've been making record revenue and record profits. So this is what it is, and you can see the shield is our promise of security, and everything surrounding it is a various different vertical that our solution, our technology is applicable to. And and what specifically, why that is the case? This is something that I think it's come obvious to all of you. Endpoints growing 10 million a day. You know, it's in the hundreds, and you know, it would be in the hundreds of billions endpoints, and it has come in all size and shape. So I would argue that a car is a macro endpoint. You know, up there, the future car has 100 million lines of code, and it comes from probably 50 to 100 different providers, and it's a humongous, you know, running, moving mobile computer, basically running around the world. So we wanted to secure that. We want to build in safety. We want to build in communication protocol to facilitate all that. And this is what we set out to do. And with that, we built, in the last 4 years, we really spent a lot of effort in building every part of it, whether it's managing the application, whether it's managing the communication, whether it's managing the security, whether it's the services we provide. So we built quite a bit, a really nice stack of software. Some of them are organically grown, things that BlackBerry already know how to do, things that BlackBerry had done, you know, the last 30 years. Some of them are newly developed code, and some of them are acquired code. So we've been acquiring a number of companies in secure collaboration, in secure voice, and you know, a company called Good Technology, some of you might know, managing an application in a container. And we put all that together and build the safest enterprise mobility management systems, okay? So to kind of summarize that, the strategy is based on the DNA of BlackBerry, and you look at, highlighted in that in orange, are the mobility, the productivity, the security, and the connectivity, which is in sync with everything I just spoke about. And in the last 3-4 years, when I first started doing this, everybody thought I was a little bold, maybe. Well, first of all, when I took the job, everybody thinks I was crazy. And then after a while, they think that my claim's a little bold. But fortunately, we've been able to show the industry and the market, and most importantly, our own employee and our customer base, that we're delivering what we said we're going to do, and we've been doing quite well. Touch wood. Well, this is plastic, but touch wood. And so we've been getting a lot of recognition and accolades. You know, partners like Google, and you know, analysts like 451 and Gartner, and they're putting us as the #1 in security, mobility, and communications, and the intersection of those for enterprises. And then why the car show? So I don't know how many people know that part of BlackBerry portfolio is a company called QNX. QNX has been the #1 embedded software provider to the car industry. It came out of Harman, the tier 1. So this is obviously a name a lot of people, you come to the show, you know. It came out from Harman, and because of that, we're very strong in the embedded world, especially in the so-called IVI solution. For those of you who are not in the industry, it's the infotainment. It's basically the infotainment systems. So much so that 60 million cars have been equipped with our technology through various tier 1, or even in some cases, one of our biggest partner in town is Ford Motor Company, and Ford uses it for Sync 3. And I think Ford's going to come up and speak a little later. I hope Ken's very happy with Sync 3. So we have done that. That was something that was already accomplished before I came to the company. And with the strategy that we talk about, and securing the enterprise of things, auto is a big part of it, because auto, a lot of people is spending a lot of research money on autonomous level 4 and 5 car, or connected level 2 and 3 cars. So we see the market opportunity. We have tremendous number of customers, which I'm going to show you. These are all the logo of the companies that we've been doing business with in the car industry. I think there's 200 different models, about 40 different OEMs. Somewhere I'm in the right ballpark in a number. And so we've been a good provider of technology to them. 4 years ago, as I said, before I came to the company, the infotainment was very strong. After I came to the company, we decided to double down or triple down onto this whole strategy. So we created, with our engineering team created over-the-air technology, hypervisors, virtual cockpit, and a whole host of things. I have a diagram for that. And so we have dramatically expanded what we can offer. And if you have followed BlackBerry news in the last 4 or 5 months, you see that a lot of partnership was struck. We struck a partnership with Denso on jointly researching the first integrated HMI, human-machine interface. We did a deal with Bosch, with Delphi. We entered the Apollo program with Baidu, and of course Ford has been a long-term partners at a very broad base. And so this morning I got an email from the CEO of, we call it Jaguar. I don't know how you pronounce it. But this is actually an interesting joke. I went to see him in London, outside London, the Jaguar Land Rover CEO. So I asked him a question. I said, by the way, in the United States, I would call it Jaguar. In UK, I noticed that you guys pronounce it Jaguar. I said, which way should I say the name? And he said, as long as you drive one, you could call it whatever you want. It's a true story, by the way. I thought it was very witty when he answered my question. Anyway, so this is we have a pretty large footprint and we're expanding that. Earlier, I talked about infotainment, beyond infotainments. These are just examples of the different ECU and functions that we now offer and built in. And they all fit into the backbone, what we call the DNA of BlackBerry. You could notice that they're obviously over-the-air technology. Security is kind of the middle name. Safety is the middle name. And everything we know how to do, building the most secure handset that government around the world uses, head of states uses, we transport a lot of those know-how into this area and into enterprise mobility area altogether. So now is the time to tell you why we're here. We're here because we thought this is a very appropriate venue to announce our first product in the auto cybersecurity side. And it's not only is a technology platform, it's a process, it's a life cycle management tools. My colleagues are going to take you through it, and we're very proud of it, called the BlackBerry Jarvis. Jarvis has its own acronym, and I think the founder of the acronym is sitting right here. This is a technique on securing our code that company have been using, our company have been using for a long time. So it's a well-proven technology, and we added on to it. We added on to the rules that is ISO compliance, and people could build their own custom rules, and it will become obvious, but I said that later on. It's a life cycle, and for me, it's a life cycle management tools, and to manage the quality of your supply chain. We talk about time saving, cost saving. These are just value to the customer who use it. As I said, later on in this whole section, as I said, my colleague Sandeep will take you through exactly why, what these all meant, and why we feel good about delivering that to everybody. So then, to make it clearer, before Sandeep come up and do the demo, to make it clearer, I'd like to show you a short video to talk about Jarvis a little bit. So could you please play that video?
In today's connected world, cars are increasingly controlled by software and must remain safe and secure throughout their lifetime. Consumer safety, costly recalls, and brand reputation are at stake for automakers, especially when software can be compromised by a cyber attack. With tiers of suppliers, large number of vendors, 100 million lines of code, and up to 100 electronic control units, how does an automaker ensure their code is not vulnerable? Enter BlackBerry Jarvis, a new transformational solution for static binary code scanning. BlackBerry Jarvis can be used by every tier of the complex software supply chain to strengthen the quality of deliveries by analyzing and providing diagnostic feedback to the engineer, which reduces security risks and ensures quality control. The cloud-based solution checks code against known vulnerabilities, potential exposures, compliance to standards, custom OEM requirements, and BlackBerry's proprietary rules built from years of security research. It would take significant amounts of time and thousands of experts to manually scan code and report issues. BlackBerry Jarvis condenses scans from days to minutes and does this with consistency, coverage, and at a fraction of the cost. With user-friendly dashboards, powerful drill-down analytics, and integration with existing tools, engineers can quickly improve code and managers can gain more insight into the quality of their software release. Today's BlackBerry Jarvis introduction just scratches the surface. BlackBerry will continue advancing this scanning technology to evolve with your business and help meet your software security requirements. BlackBerry Jarvis improves the security of your code, scales with your business, and will be evergreen.
To show you how it worked, may I introduce my colleague, Sandeep Chanakisu. Please come up, Sandeep.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon. I'm going to share with you what BlackBerry Jarvis is all about and give you a brief demo through screenshots. And this will be condensed in about 7 minutes. Obviously, it's very difficult to describe such a tool in 7 minutes. So my colleague Adam Bolton, Chris Travers, who are large contributors to building the tool, and I will be available after this little talk to explain the technology further. So what is BlackBerry Jarvis? BlackBerry Jarvis is a cloud-based, advanced, static analysis tool that works on binary code. It is used to scan binary code to look at the security posture of the code and help you improve the code to reduce a probability of an attack or vulnerability. We actually built this tool several years ago to scan our code, our phone code, and we've enhanced it and made it more applicable for general commercial use. So with that, I'm going to basically share with you how does BlackBerry Jarvis work. So really on the left-hand side, you have a set of binary files. Any tier of supplier can give you those files. Those files could be from any architecture, chip architecture, any file format, any operating system, and any file system. You'd upload the files to the cloud, and they would be scanned. And then the scan result will actually appear on an analytical dashboards, which you can actually drill down and get a lot of insight. So we all know that binary scanning is not new. So what's interesting about BlackBerry Jarvis? Well, what's interesting is those 3 engines that you see in there. Actually, there are more than 3 engines. There are a lot of engines. Illustratively, we've shown 3. It's the engines in the cloud that we use to scan the code. These engines could be engines that could look for compliance to standards, like, for example, MISRA standards, CWE CERT, and other standards. It could also basically be used to scan for proprietary BlackBerry rules that we have used for years in order to look for security vulnerabilities. And other engines could include custom rules from the automotive manufacturer where they want to basically check on whether code has been written well and what they would like to do to check that the code generated by the entire supply chain is actually with high integrity. So the differentiation really comes from the ability to keep adding these execution engines in the cloud in order to scan code. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a demo of what BlackBerry Jarvis looks like through some screenshots. So what we did is we took a large file image, an infotainment image. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said file image, but a large image. It's an infotainment image which contains a lot of files, and we scanned it. Basically, this scan revealed about 41,000 cautions. Now, obviously, this is not code that's ready to be deployed. So using this example, I'm going to share with you what you can do with this tool. So the first screenshot shows a taxonomy or kind of a composition of what this large image comprises. So this image has approximately 20,000 files. You see the diagrams show you what type of files these are and the size of the files. So you get an idea about the file composition of the image. You can actually drill down into each of the colors to actually get more details into each file. The second screenshot, this screenshot basically tells you what type of compiler defenses were used to compile the code. Normally, when you take code and you compile it, you turn on certain features in the compiler in order to basically ensure that the code is robust. Now, you can't read it from the back, but I'll give you an example of a compiler defense. So in order to make code pretty robust, what you do is you take the code and you try to randomize it in the memory so that nobody knows where contiguous blocks are. Okay, this is a kind of a security protection. Well, there is a little feature. It's the in the middle row, the bottom circle shows you there's a feature called position independent code or position independent execution. If that switch was not turned on when you compile the code, then this randomization effect would be negated. And that would be a very, very bad thing to have. As a result, there are many such switches that you need to turn on. But when you have 20,000 files coming from multiple suppliers, how do you know that they all compile their code correctly? So this would give you an immediate drill down into that. Sorry? Okay. The next thing that we have here is this screenshot tells you about all the APIs that were insecure. So these application programming interfaces could call memory, it could be on strings, it could be authentication, it could be on networking, I/O, many different functions. Okay? And you could actually drill down into each one of those to find out if they're insecure or not. This tool allows you to check for simple things in functions like buffer overflows. It's common. A hacker would typically try to overwrite the stack, cause an overflow, and instead of your code returning to where it's supposed to return, they could direct the code to some malicious point and execute their own code and take control of your function. And you would be able to spot that with this tool or on that particular piece of code. Another feature we have is to look at standards. The Motor Industry Software Reliability Association publishes standards and some guidelines. This is one such guideline. It basically has a rule which says that on a switch clause, every switch clause has to be ended with an unconditional break. Well, if that condition was violated when you scanned all these files, then it'll point out, and you can see below in the summary, there are a lot of files that have violated that condition. You can go click on them, and you can actually go into the file and see which file did not include that condition and go correct it. And we could do this with a number of criteria. You can add as many criteria as you want. The next screenshot is an example of something called cyclomatic complexity. This was introduced by Thomas McCabe in 1976. It's controversial. Some people don't think it's as useful. Some people do. Well, at least it's a guideline. All it says is that in any piece of code, any piece of code can be represented as a graph. And you try to look at the number of paths through the graph. If you have more paths, the code is more complex. Well, if the code is more complex, then you probably want to test it more thoroughly. Or you can break up that code into smaller segments. It's called refactoring. And you can decide your test strategy. So it gives you some very, very interesting tools to find out how to write robust code. This is particularly interesting for project managers and management. What you have here is a representative diagram which shows for each of the major metrics that you're tracking, by revision, are you improving or not improving? So as you build code, each revision you want to see improvements in the metrics. If you don't, you can actually drill down into that revision, go through the metrics individually, and find out exactly where the problem occurred, so you can try to improve it. So it gives you a lot of diagnostic capability as well as the ability to basically deliver production quality code. Finally, I'll end with some of the advantages. So the first thing is it's very efficient and it's cost effective. It's very rapid in terms of scanning. Manual scanning of code, let's say you have 20,000 files, will take a very long time. Scanning this in the cloud is very, very fast. Okay? The second thing is you can scan as many times as you want because it's so rapid. It's also very consistent because you don't have any human error. Okay? The code is completely confidential because you're scanning binary code, you don't have access to source code. Okay? And finally, you get massive coverage because what you have is every tier of supplier can scan code to the same criteria. So you get complete coverage across the supply chain. And finally, it's evergreen because we will keep adding execution engines continually along with our partners and our customers to make sure that it evolves with your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandeep. This morning, I was quite pleased when I got up that we have gotten a quote from the Jaguar Land Rover CEO, and he's supporting this technology and sharing his, or allow us to share their experience with this product and this process. They were able to do code scanning from what they normally do with 30 people or 30 days of work to 7 minutes. And the results, we were told, actually the coverages which Sandeep just articulated was much broader than they had done manually. So they're very pleased with that. Needless to say, I'm expecting them to be our customers very soon, obviously. I spoke about Ford a number of times. They are our biggest partner here in town. We're doing a lot of work together, and I thought it might be interesting to hear the perspective of the customers themselves. I was told that every time I mentioned the name Ford, they would give me an extra order, $1 million. Is that Chuck? Is that Chuck? So I could just keep talking about Ford. But anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you the Chief Technology Officer of Ford Motor Company, Dr. Ken Washington. Ken? Okay. All right, Ken. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
That's my honor to be here.
Because most people do not associate BlackBerry with auto. So, and you have worked with us for a very long time, so you know what we do. And
absolutely.
So I'm using you as a validator that we have every rights to be here. So I have a couple of questions. So first, an obvious question. So I was at CES show, and then I'm here. And the obvious question is the auto industry are just going through dramatic changes, right? Maybe you could speak a little bit towards that change that Ford is facing.
Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here to be part of your very exciting announcement and part of the BlackBerry comeback story. I think it's a fabulous story. And it's great to be part of that at Ford. Just to, before I answer your question, to go back to your earlier comments about sync, we're really excited about having QNX be part of that because it's allowed us to put a really fabulous connectivity and infotainment system together in Sync 3. And in fact, it's my understanding that it's #1 in the luxury market, so
yes,
and #1 in appeal as well. So there's no mistaking that cars are things on the Internet of Things, and that's only going to increase. There are 700,000 connected cars from Ford on the road today, and after 2019, every new Ford that we sell is going to be connected. And so you can imagine this future where cars are part of this connected mesh network, where these Internets of Things includes cars, and really you're thinking about smart vehicles which have intelligence and connectivity being part of this smart, connected digital world. And in such a world, you can be confident that software is going to take a very important role, and a much more important role in the future than in the past, which is why hardened tools like the ones that BlackBerry provides, like QNX, are so important to us.
Thank you. Thank you. So in order to, I mean, you folks are now looking at building the most complex software project. At least you're building some and you're integrating some and this whole big environment. So what does Ford has to change in order to get this done? Maybe that's a better way to say it. I mean, in order to do that well.
Well, I really loved one of the charts that you put up where you said that software and security is in the, I think you said the middle name, it's in your DNA. The changes that are happening at Ford are very similar, where we're trying to think about ourselves much more as a software company, a hardware and a software company, because the software is embedded software and the hardware is important too, but more indexing on the importance of software, which means that we need to be bringing in tools and software expertise, and we're building an internal software team to allow us to have that kind of internal expertise and that DNA so that we can address the challenges of the future. So our ambition is, and our vision is, to be a trusted mobility provider as vehicles, smart vehicles, go into a smart world. And the only way to be trusted is to embrace high quality software, to have the ability to know how to write very robust software and to integrate it into our vehicles in a way that is going to earn that trust from our customers.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I noticed that I'm sure that there's a lot of technology provider in the audience. And so I know Ford has been quite vocal regarding, like you just said, building your own software capability and creating the next generation cars. So how do you see, kind of like, how do you see our relationship evolved? I'll speak for us then. You know, what kind of things you rely on us doing? What kind of things you're going to do yourself? How does that work?
Well, the partnership is very important to us, John. That's why it was so easy for me to say yes to join you on stage. Our partnership is important because it allowed us to do things like the Sync 3 system. But a big part of our building our software team started with the addition of talent that came from BlackBerry. And we haven't forgotten that. And we're leveraging that talent and adding to that. We were just walking the hall earlier with my colleagues at Ford, trying to sort of mentally count up the size of our software team, and we couldn't quite do it in our head because we have a pretty big team now that builds on our software expertise in our powertrain team, as well as our software team working on autonomous vehicles. And now we have we added to that more than 500 engineers that came from BlackBerry and new hires to work on our infotainment and connected car systems. So we've built a real ecosystem of talent, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take having a mix of internal expertise and strong partnerships like the partnership that we have with BlackBerry, with access to hardened tools like QNX and the tool that was just announced today. We can't wait to get our hands on it to do some evaluation. I know the team is already chomping at the bit to try it out. So this is the kind of partnership that we need in order to bring this vision of smart cars in a smart world to reality.
Good. Thank you. I know we're supposed to have a Q&A. I'd like you to stay a little bit because I think people here probably have more questions about Ford than for me. We have time for one or two questions if anybody want to ask. There are microphones right along the center aisle there. Anybody have any questions? It doesn't have to be for BlackBerry, it could be for Ford.
Hello, gentlemen. Roger Lanto with Strategy Analytics. Can either of you or both of you comment on the manner in which or the extent to which Jarvis, this new vision of vetting code to go into vehicles, helps fulfill the cybersecurity guidelines that are being promulgated in Europe, the US, I think even Asia as well as to what extent the messaging here is aligned with the Auto ISAC and what they're trying to do?
Okay, how about I have a crack at it first and please add, especially on the ISAC part.
I can talk to that part.
All right, so if you think about Jarvis, as I said earlier, is a life cycle management tool. And it's a very proactive tool for cybersecurity in my mind. So BlackBerry has always wanted to make sure that everything we build with security in mind. So it's the first line of defense. And that's how we think about it. And then, it may or may not be clear with our presentation, we added we have the ability to add rules and experience. You think about it, I think eventually, if I want to use jargons and buzzwords and, I could say, well, this is machine learning in some form. And the learning happened to be programmed in the cloud. So the free areas are the ISO standard, the individual company requirements in security and their level of certification and compliance. And last but not least, everything that BlackBerry knows in this area, things that we could trap and in programming, styles and experience, we will put in that. So those three areas could continue to grow. And this is why Sandeep said it's a evergreen situation. And so this is very scalable. It's sitting on the cloud and it's very accessible from that perspective.
So regarding ISAC,
You said ISO. What about SAE?
Yeah, well, it's about to talk
so
about
I'll speak to both ISAC and SAE. So engagement with our colleagues in the industry in standards groups like the SAE and working on the security front together with early warnings and indicators in the settings such as ISAC. Both of those are great examples of a way in which we can work together in a space where we're not competing, but we're collaborating. And we have found both of those venues, both SAE and ISAC, and others, where we work with our competitors to do things that are for the common good and better for the industry and good for society. I know from even before I joined Ford that those kinds of techniques are they're incredibly important in order to position yourself in a secure place, given the challenges around cybersecurity criminals. And it's easier to be on offense than it is on defense. And a really critical tool when you're on defense is to share information, to get early warnings, so that you have a way to do that safely and securely in a way that is not competitive. And so I couldn't underscore more how important those kinds of venues are.
And Roger, and finally, I want to add something. As you all know, that kind of the number one thing that's coming down the pipe is about various governments around the world and how they define what is being regulated for autonomous vehicle. And by the way, people in government have spoken to me about drones. So this is not just the vehicle that's running around, the thing that's flying around too, right? And I think OWL could be a very useful tool to prove to government, on a cell compliance basis, to show that we're able to pass these following tests. And by the way, our tests meet the requirements of the government. And I think self-regulated, industry joining together, regulating is the most important thing, because you don't want the government to say your car could go, your car couldn't go, and stuff like that. So and it's not practical in that sense, right? So I think, tools like what we're providing today and announcing today will be the very first step of doing that. I'm sure there are more tools that's required as time goes on. But unfortunately, I'm going to run out. Anybody who have a dying question? Oh, please. This had to be the last one.
Harmony from Adweek, and I was curious, but your example was an infotainment example, and I'm wondering, with the growth of connected cars and entertainment and ads all being part of, you have an explosion of software providers that are not necessarily being involved in the core maintenance of the vehicle. And I'm wondering whether that adds to the level of needed security, or if there's something specific about those fields that makes your platform particularly useful or germane.
Thank you. Thank you. It's, as Ken said earlier, whether it's a core programming platform or code from application provider, or a level higher, whether it's UI-based or things that, Android-based or CarPlay-based, you're downloading things to your devices or your dashboard. It's very important that the OEM, like Ford, will find a standard to accept that download without messing up the safety functionality of the car. So as the complexity of more code being downloaded, whether it's as a inline code or as a added-on code, I think it makes our tools immensely valuable. I used to work life cycle. I used to develop code myself. So if we all go, the whole group of us are creating code together, Ken might find a piece of code that he's working on that's quite critical right in the final phase of final test and assembly. And he needs to release some patches. Now the question then, we're all going to sit around and say, today, we all sit around to say, let's just hypothetically walk through the code and see what's wrong. Well, what could be wrong? Is there anything get violated? Is there a buffer overflow? Is that something happened here? Well, you just plug in our tools. As I said, we'll take 30 days worth of work to 7 minutes. That gives you the affordability to check it all one by time without having to slip schedule for another 30 days, for example, in that particular case. So I think lifecycle management, this is why I'm excited about the tools. I think our evergreen cloud-based tool grow with you, but it will save you time tremendously. And it gives management, by the way, an index into how high the quality is of the code. So maybe Ken have something to...
Well, I would like to comment, because I love your question, because if you think about your question through the lens of a consumer or a customer, the customer doesn't know or care whether it's an embedded software module, or if it's a module that's on their smartphone that's accessing the vehicle, or whether it's something in the powertrain controls module. They just want to be safe and they want to have a good experience. And so in this future world where you have smart vehicles in a smart world, where you've got a connected vehicle, you've got an infotainment vehicle that's getting downloads from the cloud, you got maybe a powertrain module that's going to get updated because you want to add some new experience, or maybe it's an autonomous vehicle and you've got some pretty sophisticated software that's managing the route and managing the access to the doors and whatever else might be the case. All of these software modules have to be secure, and many of them will be provided by suppliers. And some of these software modules you won't have source code for, so you need to have some mechanism to convince yourself that it's safe and secure. So tools like Jarvis and others might be extremely important as we think about that future. So as you think about it through the lens of a customer, all of these software modules that make up the smart vehicle in a smart world have to be thought about as a system, and they all have to be safe and secure. That's what being a trusted mobility provider means. It means thinking about it holistically and having the right tools in place and the right processes in place so that the customer can trust that you're going to take care of them, regardless of where you got the software from and how you're doing the integration.
Thank you, Ken. By the way, we haven't found tools like Jarvis, like he said, others. We haven't found the others yet, but that's okay. I ran out of time. Thank you all very much for coming, and have a great conference. Take care. Have a good day. Thank you, Ken. Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Nicely done.